Hello, everyone. I'm Leela Tressimer. I've been wanting to share some of the sacred activist work that a group of us participated in Washington, D.C. this year. We're briefly going to do an overview of what we accomplished and what we explored in Washington, D.C. to share a little bit of the insights and the pattern and the template that we worked with. And I'm going to be inviting in a few of the participants. So I'd like to start with a brief overview and some visuals to explain that the way in which the Star House in Boulder, Colorado has supported this work is in the reflection and education that many of us have received from the universal principles and universal intelligence of what I would call sacred wisdom. We generally understand that the four directions, north, south, east, and west, working with the principles of elements in those four directions, where north is earth, east, air, south, warmth, and west, water, that this medicine wheel, so to speak, or these directions as they relate to elements can be worked with as a template. There are other medicine wheels that assign the elements to the different directions, but we're working with these directions because Star House was dedicated in that manner, really related primarily to the Celtic assignment of elements to the directions. So this is the template that we worked with in the National Mall, really with the overall intention of opening up heart space, the heart space held by humanity, the heart space that I sense is held by the seen and the unseen world that cares and is dedicated to the principles of life and liberty. So here are a few perspectives.
For most of my life, I considered Washington a mystery. All these arguments and people with different points of view and different influences, and oh my goodness. And it was because of Leela, actually, that we visited there. And then I could feel that all this argument and existed on top of a giant of positive intent and principle, located in a place that was coming up from the earth, a difficult place, but they chose that place because that is where this opportunity was coming up from the earth and coming down from the heavens, and acknowledging that through placement of these monuments in relationship to the stars. When you see that the wise designers of Washington, D.C. asked that a cornerstone be placed at 10:59 a.m., that's an alert that one should pay attention. Well, why 10:59? And then you find that the star Spica, the goddess star, the virgin in her power, is rising at that moment in the east. So a coordination with the stars, and I was surprised and delighted and realized that the principles there seem hollow until you actually visit. And you visit these places of freedom and peace and justice and fertility. When you visit these places, it comes alive in your body because you participate in that initial uprising from the earth, still available, and the coming down from the stars in the heavens. So I co-facilitated the last one, and I recommend that you find a way to experience this giant where principles are being brought into action that contribute to personal evolution and also the evolution of humanity.
So, hi everybody. I'm Candace, and I really would love to share with you about my journey. And as all journeys, there are different levels So there's the personal level that each of us were journeying, then the group working as a cohesive group with the intention of being fully present to mediate energies. And this is where the sacred activism really comes in for me, is to know that I am capable of mediating energies of peace and justice and fertility and freedom, guided by higher intelligences or a higher principle, and that it's not insignificant to show up in this way. And so the journey then is a communal journey, an individual journey, and actually a bigger journey of global possibility and unity. No small thing, and it was no small thing. Each day moves the group closer to understanding these very prime principles that our government was built on, whether they existed in reality at the time or not. But it builds to the time where each of us took our place. And the energy, I feel it right now because it is alive in me. And it was before the journey, but now it's electrically alive. And I can't recommend this more. It is very powerful. And I want to thank David and Leela in particular for organizing this in a way in the art that built to the ritual moment when we all took our places intentionally and fully present. It was remarkable, remarkable.
So I want to take you on a little visual of the exploration that led us to the ceremonial moment. We created the map related to the 4 directions, the 4 elements, the 4 monuments, and then working with my dear friend Anastasia Nutt, we implied that there were feminine principles connected to each one of these directions. The statues of those principles don't necessarily sit in the National Mall in the same direction, but all of these statues are connected to the mall. So that was the pattern that we worked with, and then we ended our trip with a ceremonial opening, working with this lemniscate pattern that you see here, really dedicating the central flame of the mall as held by the obelisk to open just to the movement of energy from the unseen world to the seen world. So that was the culmination of our time together. So in these next visuals, we're going to share how we moved through the map in the 4 directions and brought in elements. The Sacred Activist Journey to Washington, D.C. We created this with the Star House in Boulder, and we began, as many journeys begin, by asking poignant questions. Do you ever feel impotent to influence the political polarization of these times? Do you question whether you know enough or how Washington feels hopeless and there's nothing I can do? We are all part of the body politic, concerned citizens. We created our central altar, which was contributed to by all those attending, and based on the map of our unfolding, these 4 directions, the 4 monuments, and the 4 feminine principles. It all begins in the center with the Washington Monument as an obelisk. And from the high-pointed obelisk to the circularity of the Native American Museum, also located in the east, in this beautiful sculpted space, we met in the central area of the medicine wheel to recognize the 4 directions, to begin the journey of bringing in the above as well as the wisdom of the below, realizing that the Native people of this land are an important part to recognize. Honoring the Native people, honoring the feminine, These became core principles of our journey together, focusing on the strength of the goddess of freedom, who was modeled after primarily a Native American female and represents the east seen as the eagle on top of her helmet of freedom. And she stands on the Capitol building as her bronze statue. And these are the influences of the East, the principle of freedom, the air element, and other reflections of culture, art, and beauty throughout the Capitol building, which Jefferson called the Temple of Freedom. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. It's important to recognize that these monuments and the statues are reflections of history and of the founders, and they provide us with a fabric and a template to build upon, to bring in principles of the feminine that are so missing. The Goddess series representing fertility and growth, to which Jefferson was dedicated. So there is a pattern here that we can work with. The farm, best home of family, main source of nation as wealth, foundation of civilized society, the natural providence.
I've really been able to see the deeper aspects of what went into the heart and soul of this nation and the building and blossoming of it.
So my name is Jillian, and as I made the journey, I could feel in myself this sort of wondering, what is this about? Why am I so deeply called? It was a mystery. And so as we spent the week together, dropping in creating the space for what would be a larger sacred ceremony, and the little pieces that we tended along the way, gathering very logistical information and looking at paintings and the Declaration of Independence. And every day I felt like I was absorbing more and more of the energy of the intention of this country. And that in and of itself was such a beautiful surprise. And I felt so relieved to feel the goodness in the intentions of this country as it was created, centuries ago. What really sticks with me is how empowering it was after a week of being together to then stand in this beautiful sacred ceremony with the others in the group and work with, feel the movement of the energies between the different polarities, and to feel the connection of it all coming together, and to realize, oh, this work really matters. It really, really, really matters. And it resonates so much more for me, sacred activism does, than kind of getting into the muck of politics that really doesn't make sense to me and feels bad, literally feels bad. And what we did in our week in DC felt good, like really, really, really good. And I left feeling so empowered and so connected and so inspired. And now I think it maybe now has been a month, and since I returned home, and I'm noticing these beautiful ways that our time in DC are rippling out in my work in the community, both on local farms, and in my work as a psychotherapist, and in my connections with people, friendships, just being a member of this community. I'm noticing the goodness that built in our time in DC rippling out into my community here. So it gives me hope that there is another way and that we can find it together.